Hey, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, everyone, depending on when you're listening or watching. This is the Walter's Wanderings Travel Podcast, and this is episode, I guess, 22. We just keep adding on episodes. You can check out the YouTube channel and be able to see all the old episodes, and we'll be podcasting soon. Exactly when depends on when I get these all podcast guys registered. And we do have a special of the day for you. The Atlantis Resort in the Bahamas is our special of the day. If you book with me 3 nights or more at the Atlantis in the Bahamas, I'll send you $25 off your trip. So a small thank you. You can use it at the casino or wherever at the Atlantis complex. It's quite a nice place. And I'm happy to go ahead and bring that to you as the special of the day. Now we're going to add our guest for the day, and that's John Thompson. There he is.
How you doing? How you doing, Scott? Thank you for having me, sir.
Hey, listen, it's a pleasure indeed, and the pleasure's all mine. John is a friend of mine. I've known him for years. I consider him an overcomer because he's overcome much more than the average person in his life so far, and he continues to do so. And he's a great guy and a pleasure to know, and he has a couple of Facebook pages that he might want to plug a little bit later on, but we're going to talk about travel first. Excuse me, John. Now, when I say you're an overcomer, it's because you do have a series of, for lack of a better term, I suppose, special needs that requires some differences when it comes to traveling. Would you like to talk about that for a little bit before we get to your own travel story?
Yeah, yes, sir. And of course, I do have cerebral palsy. As you know, I've known you for a long time, going back to your singing days at the local parish here, and still happy to see that you're doing well and everything. But yeah, when you have a disability, traveling on ground is never that easy unless you have some great people that make it happen for you, or you have a really good logistics plan in your own mind, or you have a certain skill set. For me, I've been blessed with all of that. I've been blessed with support. Pre-pandemic, of course, we're talking about, and of course now in the pandemic, everything has slowed down, no pun intended, as I'm sure you know, being in the industry. But ground transportation for me includes taking a local bus service, special for people with disabilities, but I'm also blessed with the gift of high functioning and mobility. So I do also take a taxi from time to time. I take Ubers, and I also do travel into the city using a train when I can. I go into Penn Station, and I go there from Nanuet, New York. I wish there were more wheelchair accessible train stations around, but that's a story for another day. And traveling, as you and I have talked about, traveling does give a sense of independence, especially to somebody like me who has a wheelchair. And as you mentioned, I work in sports with baseball. I'm involved in sports at the high school and collegiate level. So one of my greatest things in my life, one of my greatest mottos is that you can do it. You just have to get there a different way than others might. If other people go A to B to C, I might have to think about A, B, C, and D potentially, and D being my backup plan, or D being, okay, once you get there, what kind of accommodations they're going to be. But everything I do, I consider an honor and a privilege, because without special opportunity, and especially where you are in my life, you consider yourself lucky to even have the chances that I do. So I really appreciate any travel that I get to do, because it's enlightening on so many levels.
That's excellent, and it's just true. You again, more proof that you are what I call an overcomer, and you can use that term freely if you like. So,
Thank you.
Hey, no worries. Now, I know that you have been a regular visitor to the Atlantis Resort in the Bahamas. And the Atlantis Resort in the Bahamas is a huge place. I mean, it's a tremendous place with several different towers for accommodations. It has a huge casino. It has the amazing aquarium area. It has all the water features as well, and they even have a beach. I mean, it's strategically located in the Bahamas, so it's an easy plane ride from New York to get there. And then it's just a simple get out of the airport, get your transfer, and go across the bridge they built and get yourself up the hill to the resort. But you've gone several times because you found that they've been quite accommodating. What kind of things do they do there for you that makes it so special and so wonderful for you?
Well, let me back up also because I think you missed one very special attraction there. And for you young viewers, I crossed a bucket list item off a few years ago, back in 2013, when I did the Lazy River Rapids ride. And boy, that is something that's amazing. But to get back to what you were saying, Atlantis has really, Sol Kerzner's vision when he first built the Atlantis was he wanted to bring Atlantis out of the ocean. And that motto, excuse me, was so brilliant at the time because he really has. I mean, we started off at the Coral Towers, my family and I, and we very quickly realized that the Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't apply there. So, and a lot of people look at me like I have 12 heads, but it's a Caribbean nation, you know. So there was a lot of adjusting to it. So the first, year you kind of have to go and get the lay of the land. And then they started building the reef, and incrementally you started to see that they were getting there as far as disability, keeping the elevators in better condition, doing all the right stuff, being very compassionate. I mean, they don't care who you are. If they see you struggling, they will help you, like literally from, you know, the towel hut at the reef to the waterfront where you want to go, and then there will be somebody there to help you when you're ready to go back up to your room for lunch, or to go get some lunch. Of course, I have some accommodation, so I can't be out in the sun usually during the lunchtime hours. So I usually go back up to the room and relax. Uh, but it wasn't until the third year that we really started to see an impressive build in the whole Atlantis company. And let me tell you this: before I started, before year three of my time at Atlantis, they had no idea what a bath chair was. And that's how I shower. And it was, very embarrassing, but hey, you're in the Bahamas, so you do what you have to do, and you know that these people are trying their best. And believe me, Scott, if you've ever been there, the spirit of the Bahamian people, they are as warm as the temperature. They make you feel right at home. They don't care if this is your first time or if this is you're in my case, up until the pandemic, we'd gone 13 straight years. I was looking back at my notes before coming on the show. And by year three, they had a bath chair ready for me when I got to the reef, which was pretty amazing. And now they have it where you can actually book it with your travel reservation as part of your accommodations with the airline. So if you bundle package it, they will put a request in there, and more than likely it will get in there, and it will be in the room upon your arrival. And it's really amazing how they have no obligation legally to the ADA. They didn't even have bars in the bathroom the first couple of years. They had automatic flushers, but for somebody like me, if you're sitting on the potty, you have to step on the sensor So the toilet would flush, and I would still not be finished. Now that might be TMI for the show, but it was just what their interpretation of disability was. And since year three, they've added something more amazing. I mean, 24-hour presence at the chairlift, so you can go into the casino and I could play the slots. Assistance, I mean, beyond belief. If an elevator doesn't work, they have extra paths going around every place, so you don't even have to worry about, oh, what if this, what if that. If an elevator shorts out, they're more than ready to help you. And I'm very afraid of elevators as they are, which is pretty funny considering that I have to rely on them. But each and every year, the Bahamas as a whole, especially Atlantis, uh, under the direction I think now of Ed Fields and Audrey Oswell, really have done an incredible job, not only making sure that persons with disabilities feel comfortable, but also making sure that their caregivers feel comfortable, the family feels comfortable, and they don't feel like a flat tire on the traveling party. It is awesome to see what these people have done. I've made a lot of friends out there throughout the 13 years my family and I have. So we do keep in touch. There's a fantastic news program called Our News. You can catch it on YouTube. Uh, it's daily, Monday through Sunday, so you can keep up with what they're doing, and you definitely feel a connection with the island beyond the 4 or 5 days you might be there, because they're just such great people, and they just want to see us having a good time, and they extend themselves in a way that is just so unbelievable when it comes to the disability. But we never went in there, yelling and screaming, we need this, we need that, we need the other thing. You have to build with them. You have to leave it on the comment card. You have to be cordial about it. I say this for any place. When I go to Tampa for Yankee spring training, you can't, I made the mistake when I was younger of thinking, oh, advocating was making the most noise. You can't do that, because inherently people are going to want to run away from the wheelchair because through no fault of their own, they don't know. So if you're not a magnet for them to go to, and not somebody they want to talk to, or if you look like you're just an angry person, they're going to run from you through no fault of their own, because you've proven their theory that you are that person in a wheelchair that they might have had a experience with. They're ambassadors of their country, but I always consider myself, everywhere I go, whether I'm in the US, whether I'm at work, I consider myself an ambassador of people with disabilities and wheelchairs. And when I don't live up to that, or I make a mistake, it's personal, because you think a positive interaction with me could lead to somebody else having a positive interaction that might not want to speak. And give you a quick example. They To them, the beach water, excuse me, is a big part of them. So over the years, in the lobby, I would make the mistake of walking down with my crutches, and I would fall down. Right? It was never a thought to them that the little crutch tips could pick up even a small speck of sand, and that speck of sand could lead somebody to fall. Well, now what do? They dry the floors every morning. They dry the elevators, because they have that attention to detail that they didn't have. So every year I go to the Bahamas, I see something that's more amazing, more shocking, and more amazing, that makes me say, I want to go back. And that's the big word. In this industry, especially now in a pandemic, when we're all locked at home, you look at your pictures and you're like, where do I want to go back? And definitely Atlantis is a place that, when it's safe, And when the Ministry of Tourism, under the direction of Dionisio de Aguilar, and the Ministry of Health with Renward Wells, as you said, clears it, I will definitely entertain going back there.
So that is just awesome, and we're glad that a resort like Atlantis that doesn't have to step up because, as you know, they're not in the United States, is doing so because obviously it's good for them overall and it's good for you. Now, you also told me pre-show that you had a rather amazing experience with JetBlue Airlines. Now, you want to tell us about that?
Oh, sure. I would say, Scott, um, uh, and you can, if somebody has Twitter or whatever, you can tweet this out, hashtag this. I don't know what they do nowadays, uh, but JetBlue is the best airline for people with disabilities, and I'll tell you why my family and I switched over to them. Uh, Parts of my family, we all travel differently. We all make our own different travel accommodations, but we all have to meet at Linden Pingland International Airport, which is the main thoroughfare when you get into Nassau. Um, and one of the many years that we took in opposing airline, I just felt that there was a lack of interest, a lack of care on the part of that airline, and I wasn't really, I wasn't really feeling it. Wasn't really feeling as the fact that we were equal. We were like every other traveler. We would certainly raise concerns. And then the last straw for me was it was pouring rain, and we're on the way to the Bahamas, and I got a brand new set of wheelchair tires because they told me they reserve the right to not take the wheelchair on if the tires are frayed, which is well within their right to do so, I might say. An airline does have the right. They do have their own wheelchair policies, so they do have the right to deny entry of the chair if they so choose. So it's the responsibility of the wheelchair user to make sure your wheelchair is in the best condition and your equipment is in the best condition for travel. So I did that. Thank goodness we got a tire distributor who replaced tires from Tennessee, overnighted them. So I'm on the plane, sitting on the uh, right right wing side of the plane, first row in the bulkhead, and I notice outside the window that there's this square-like apparatus sitting out in the thunder and the pouring rain. I'm like, I'm like, that looks like my chair. And so I said to the students, I said, there are brand new tires on that thing, and she's like, oh, we're gonna get it in. I said, respectfully, ma'am, and I always start with something respectfully, and then I say, sir or ma'am, because all these customer service people, they're expecting you to be confrontational, and they're shocked when you're not. And that's one thing that everybody has to learn coming out of the pandemic. Everybody in the customer service field expects you to be confrontational, and they're shocked when you're not. I said, look, I said, my mom and I are here. We're going to meet our family in the Bahamas. And, would you mind just calling somebody on the ground, one of your ground support staff to just put the chair in just so I don't have to see it? Because essentially that's a part of me that you're leaving out in the rain. Well, we're going to take good care of it, this and that. Well, then finally, 20 minutes later, they load it in, and the chair comes out, and it's fine, and it's as soaked as anything. I mean, so it's soaked. I mean, I felt like I was sitting in a pool. By the time I got in the taxi cab, it was like, oh my goodness, my shorts were wet. Thank goodness I had a bathing suit on. If I would have known better, I would have worn it. So then I immediately, um, finished that trip. That was year 11. I finished that trip, and I began looking at JetBlue, and I really began to question them and see what their policies were towards wheelchairs and assistive devices. And they were so accommodating. They're like, look, you know, you take a picture of your equipment. If you think we did something to it, you let us know. We will support you 24 hours if you book it through us. That's why it's important to always book through the airline's travel place, because you always have 24/7 support under JetBlue, regardless of where you are, because we have the disability. I then took them on what I called was a test flight to Tampa, Florida, and I made it a little challenging. I mapped out a trip from Westchester County Airport to Florida, and then coming back in, landing at Newark. And I'll tell you, to say that trip went smooth, it went so smooth, and they gave me points so fast. 3 days later, I was on the phone with them booking my Atlantis trip, because that's how comfortable you feel with them. Last time we went in year number 13, we had a chance to get an earlier flight. I got out of work a little bit earlier than expected. I mean, Scott, you know what I work in, so time is time is not 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I got out a little bit early, and I said, let me see if I can get on the 6 a.m. flight. By now, I come home, shower. It's 12:15 the morning we're supposed to travel, and I called JetBlue. I says, do you have reservations on the 6 a.m. flight out of JFK? And they said, sure. And I said, well, wait a second. I said, I have the wheelchair request. I have my wheelchairs on there. My special accommodations are in there. The early check-in's not in there. The agent says, well, wait a second. We are going to take care of that for you right now. And they sent me a new boarding pass. They sent it right to my phone with my points. They sent me new information. I didn't have to do anything different with the customs. And do it was so easy, because I went from being the first flight out in rush hour to the first flight out in the dead of nighttime, and by about 3 o'clock I was sleeping in a chair at Newark at JFK Airport, because of the professionalism of those wonderful JetBlue attendants. And I would strongly recommend, if you have a disability or you use assistive devices, you got to look into JetBlue, because they are amazing.
Well, it is true. JetBlue is very customer conscious, and it is one of my preferred airlines whenever I book people's travel. So, when the dust settles and the dust clears from the COVID, I'll be happy to book you and your whole family, and you'll get the same service you get directly from JetBlue, because I work hand in hand with them. So it makes it very nice. It makes it very easy, and when it comes to the packages, I can package everything together. I can get you your preferred room at the Reef. We can do all of that, all seamless, and the cost that's built in to the price that you would pay Atlantis directly, or the JetBlue vacations, that the extra cost, the commission cost, that'll come to your buddy right here. So
Thank you. Well, I think it's also amazing from what you guys do as travel agents. I mean, people. I make a lot of sports references, let's say, and I think it's important that you mentioned working hand in hand, because a lot of people say they do, and then you don't know how they do. So it's very refreshing to hear that there are people that take pride in working hand in hand. So as a consumer, you know when COVID is a thing of the past. And by the way, I want to say thank you to the frontline workers and everybody who has helped keep us safe and everything. But when you look at what the travel market's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see how it comes back. Which airlines jet forward, no pun intended. Are airlines going to become a thing of the past because people are going to want to travel more? How will the industry shift? We don't know. It's just going to be something that's going to stand the test of time. I know in the Bahamas they're not predicting a regular travel recovery. They're not predicting it until 2023 or 2024, from what I've been reading in the local papers and hearing on their local news. So I think the more we can do to help those wonderful people out and speed up their uh, their transition, I think you'd be doing a lot for them, not only financially as a country, but for them as a people.
No, I understand that because again, these places are so tourist based that when there's no tourism, there's just no money at all. So listen, you've been great. You've offered incredible insight. I really appreciate it because without this kind of insight, I can't grow in my business. And I can tell you right now, during this time of COVID, I can tell you that easily every booking that I'm doing, such as they are now, it's taking me at least 3 to 4 times more time and energy and research to make sure that everything is correct and all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, because it's a changeable feast practically every day. But we'll make it through, and on the other side, we will be stronger than ever. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely, Scott. And another thing, of course, people can follow me, as you said, across my Facebook platforms, All Things Sports and Life by John Lee Thompson. I also have a YouTube channel called the JL Thompson YouTube channel, where I talk mostly about sports, but life as well. I think one of the biggest things about the Bahamas before you go, one of the most reliable sources I find is Our News. It's one of my favorite programs to listen to. It's the most up-to-date local news source. You can find that right on YouTube. It's a daily thing. It airs every night at 7:30 on Facebook Live, and then the commercial-free option comes up later. But also the Nassau Tribune is a good thing to read before you go, so you can always get a lay of the land of what traffic may be during your stay, whether has there been anything that you need to know about. And I mean, also, it's also important to read the U.S. Embassy website, because that's a good resource too. But you got to remember, the U.S. Embassy website doesn't always have the local resources that they have. The U.S. resources, but they don't have the local access. So, for example, which government is in charge? Like, I remember the last time we went, there was going to be a swearing in. So my mother and I were going to be there first. So it was important to take a cab and make sure the cab driver knew a way around the downtown area. So it's always prudent to do light research for the Bahamas, just so that you know what you're going into. But I'm telling you, those people are wonderful people, and boy oh boy, they make a lot of memories. And they always say it's better in the Bahamas. I like to say, with the water, with the people, the warm sunshine, it's a triple play. So I can't wait to get to the Bahamas when time and my personal health allows me to do so.
Listen, I certainly understand that, and I thank you so much for being on board. Don't forget that if you do book a trip to the Atlantis Bahamas, I'm going to throw in $25 on your booking if you stay 3 nights or more, because it's the right thing to do. And this way you'll be able to play a little bit at the casino or grab some conch fish or something and enjoy your time. So listen, John Lee Thompson, thank you so much for being on this edition of the Walter's Wandering Travel Podcast. And we'll see you next time